This is Exodus chapter 17 and verse 16. It says, "For he said, because the Lord has sworn that the Lord will have war with Amalek from generation to generation." I want to start off by giving all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, who are the elders of Yahshua Allah, and a sincere salutation to all Yuakim, who are preaching this word and believing this word, and to the Akwath, who are believing this word in all truth and in sincerity. All right, I want to go into a lesson inspired by this interview of a rabbi named Elhanan Beck. All right, Lord willing, I'm going to entitle the lesson Rabbi Elhanan Beck, Netanyahu is Amalek. All right, and that is based on a statement that he made in this clip. All right, before I begin the lesson, all right, I'll say this through the Spirit that Amalek, all right, is the Israelis, all right, the small hats. They are the tribe of Amalek. All right, so when he makes this statement, that is true that not Netanyahu is an Amalekite. All right, but the way he uses it, as you're gonna see, is very deceptive. All right, making a statement that Amalek is a concept, is no longer a people. That's not biblical. All right, but I want to go into this through the Spirit. Lord willing, this be edifying. So I want to start here at 9 minutes and 43 seconds, and then we'll play it, and then we'll stop it and get some precepts, Lord willing.
People from God constantly.
So you're saying Netanyahu is Amalek?
Netanyahu, I didn't have to say it. This is the fact. Amalek means people who uproot people from God, especially the Jewish people uproot from God. This is the job of Netanyahu do. And exactly, he is the Amalek. But I didn't have to say it. This is just the fact. I bring out the fact on the table. But I say that with the full mouth. I have no problem to say that. He is the right Amalek. Who gives him the right to say who is Amalek, who's not? Of course, everybody who is his enemy, he will say he is Amalek. I can say for you, I can say for everybody. I mean, you have to understand what it means, Amalek. Now, I will come to another point. For 100 years.
All right, so we just kind of heard that, and Lord willing, I'll start around 7:34, and we'll kind of get more context of his statement. But again, this is him trying to make it a concept so that he can still include the Jewish people as they're known today as the Israelites, and they're not the Israelites as a nation of people. All right, those Israelis who identify themselves as Jewish, all right, are not the Israelites. All right, now you have some Israelites among them. All right, you have Israelites that are scattered amongst all the nations. So you may have Israelites among the so-called Jewish people. All right, but the Jewish people as a nation are not the Israelites. All right, and this is coming to light. And one thing that is really making it come to light is prophecy. All right, when you deal with prophecy and who is Esau, all right, who is Amalek, what would be happening? What would be the actions of these different nations in the end times? What it's doing is really removing the covering cast, and the world is starting to be faced with truth. All right. Real quick, this is Isaiah chapter 25 and verse 7. "And he will destroy in this mountain the face of the covering cast over all people, and the veil that is spread over all nations." And see, that veil, all right, that deception is being spread over all nations, but now it's being removed. All right, and this is why everyone has to scramble and figure out answers to who is Amalek, who is Esau. Everybody's trying to, as like the concept of musical chairs. The music is stopping, and everybody's trying to find a seat that includes them favorably in prophecy. All right, and this is what he's doing. All right, when you deal with his concept, as we're going to go back and get into it, he believes that the Jewish people are the Israelites, but you have a bad sect, if you will. All right, but we're going to go through the scriptures precept upon precept and see that that's not the case. Again, you may have Israelites who are among them. All right, because the Israelites are among all nations. Israelites are Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, West Indians, and Haitians. But again, our descendants are scattered amongst all nations, so they will look like other nations of people. All right. But understand that the Jewish people as a nation goes back to Amalek. All right. And we're going to point out prophecy to highlight that point. All right. So before we do that, I want to get a little bit more of this video. All right. Before we get more precepts.
And tell us and tell the audience just what is the story of Amalek?
Amalek is not really a person. It is a person, but what means it's not really a person? Amalek is a concept. Amalek describes the people who uproot people away from God.
All right. So we're going to deal with this first and foremost. All right. Amalek was a person. All right. And we're going to get that. This is Genesis chapter 36. And I want to jump up to verse 9. It says, and these are the generations of Esau, the father of the Edomites in Mount Seir. These are the names of Esau's sons: Eliphaz, the son of Adah, the wife of Esau; Reuel, the son of Bashemath, the wife of Esau. And the sons of Eliphaz were Teman, Omar, Zepho, and Gatam, and Kenaz. And Timnah was concubine to Eliphaz, Esau's son, and she bare to Eliphaz Amalek. And these were the sons of Adah, Esau's wife. All right, so keep this in mind, right? This is identifying a nation of people, all right, the Edomites, because the Jewish people are just another category, a subcategory of so-called white people. Even though they try to separate themselves, we're not white, we're Jewish, they all live under the same nation, all right? They live on the same family tree, and that is Esau, all right? Again, Genesis 36 and 9, and these are the generations of Esau, the father of the Edomites in Mount Seir. All right, so we just heard the generations of Esau, the father of the Edomites. So they're really Edomites. They're Hebrew Edomites of the tribe of Amalek. All right, so this whole idea of Amalek as a concept is a deceptive way to include them in prophecy. All right, and we're going to go into scriptures precept upon precept to show that even their own history that they vocalized isn't biblical for the Israelites. You know, the Israelites had a prophecy that they will fall away from their heritage. These people claim that they've never fell away from their heritage. All right, among many other things that we're going to go into. But again, I wanted to deal with this first and foremost. Amalek is not a concept. It is a nation of people, and they're alive today. All right, real quick. This is Ecclesiastes 4 and 16. There is no end of all the people, even of all that have been before them. They also that come after shall not rejoice in him. Surely this also is vanity and vexation of spirit. All right, we're going to get a prophecy concerning this. All right, because again, it's a reason people are trying to place Amalek as a concept, because Amalek is a part of Edom. And when you know prophecy, and he's aware of prophecy, which is why he's trying to turn Amalek into a concept. Because when you deal with who Amalek is and what nation he's from, being the Edomites, they're not promised any mercy by the Heavenly Father. All right. So you don't see anybody really dealing with who is Edom and who is Amalek. Because again, Amalek is not favored, but picked out in prophecy, all right, as a nation that is going to perish forever, all right, along with the nation of Edom, because they are the nation of Edom. They're the chief house of Edom. This is why you see an inner fight between the small hats and the regular so-called white people, because the small hats occupy the chief seat amongst the nation of Edom. All right, so let's go into this. We'll get some more of this, and we'll get some scriptures, Lord willing.
At that time, for 3,500 years ago, when Jewish people got out when God took us out from Egypt, then the whole world has saw in believing God and saw the big power of God. And everybody was afraid in the walls. There is a God in the world. He runs the world. Then at that time it comes some nation it calls Amalek and shown for the world, no, we don't have to fear God. We can do whatever we want. Since then, Amalek is the symbol of people who uproot people from God. In today's day, we cannot point any specific nation to say this is Amalek, or this is Amalek, or this is Amalek. Amalek today is a concept.
And again, this is wrong. All right. Let's go into prophecy. All right, because prophecy would identify who Amalek is. Again, nationality isn't about color. All right. I'm gonna make that statement as well through the spirit. It's about the seed of your father. All right. So the nation of Israel can look like anybody. But again, when we're talking about families on the earth are collectively identifying themselves as a proverb or a byword. For example, the Chinese have a biblical nationality. Their biblical nationality is Moab. Is it possible that there are Israelites that look like Chinese people? 100%. But does that make the Chinese people Israelites? Negative. So you can understand it. So when we're talking about who Amalek is, who Esau is, we're talking about the family, the nation as a whole. Are there Israelites amongst them? Of course. But according to prophecy, the families of the earth would have a certain position in the earth, and they would be doing certain things in the earth in the time of the end. All right, now let's deal with Amalek. This is Numbers chapter 24 and 20. All right, and it reads, all right, and when you really get the concept or context, Salakia, this is a prophecy. All right. So let's go down and we're going to get this. I'm going to start up to get the context. Numbers 24 and 15. And he took up his parable and said, Balaam, the son of Beor, has said, and the man whose eyes are open hath said, he that said, which heard the words of Yahweh by Shemashah and knew the knowledge of the Most High, which saw the vision of the Almighty, falling into a trance, but having his eyes open. I shall see him, but not now. I shall behold him, but not nigh. There shall come a star out of Jacob, and a scepter shall rise out of Israel, and shall smite the corners of Moab, and destroy all the children of Sheth. All right, and this is a reference to the Messiah. Verse 18, and Edom shall be a possession. Seir also shall be a possession for his enemies, and Israel shall do valiantly. Out of Jacob shall come he that shall have dominion, and shall destroy him that remaineth of the city. And when he looked on Amalek, he took up his parable and said, Amalek was the first of the nations, but his latter end shall be that he perish forever. Now, this is an important prophecy. All right, this hasn't happened yet. All right, we just read there's no end to the people. So this hasn't happened yet. All right, but let's get into the words. All right, because it says Amalek is the first of the nations. All right. Now, when you deal with this word, all right, Ra'ashya, Salakia, Ra'ashya, and it says first, beginning, best, chief. All right. So Ra'ashyath goes into beginning, best, chief, first, beginning, chief, choice part. All right. And among so-called white people, there's not a more elevated class than the small hats. If you think the average so-called white person has white privilege, just look at how the small hats are treated. You know, the privilege that they have amongst so-called white people. That would make them what? That would make them the beginning, the first. All right. So let's go back to that word. Ra'ash, ya, Slakia, Ra'ashyath. All right. Ra'ashyath. And this is going into the beginning, best, chief, first. Beginning, first, chief, choice part. Strong's definition says the first in place, time, order, or rank. Beginning, chief, first, principal thing. All right, you got to keep in mind that this is a prophecy. All right, so Balaam is taking up this parable because, again, the small hats have an elevated status in the world today amongst the Edomites, amongst the so-called white people. Um, the small hats have an elevated status, all right, which is going into they're the first of the nations. But his latter end shall be that he perish forever. And really, this is a prophecy going into Edom. Amalek is a part of the Edomite nation. All right, as a matter of fact, let's go here. All right, it's Obadiah, and I'm going to jump down to verse 17. It says, but upon Mount Zion shall be deliverance, and there shall be holiness, and the house of Jacob shall be, it's like in the house of Jacob shall possess their possessions. And the house of Jacob shall be a fire, and the house of Joseph a flame, and the house of Esau for stubble. And they shall kindle in them and devour them, and there shall not be any remaining of the house of Esau, for the Lord hath spoken it. All right, when you get this in the NLT, it says the people of Israel will be a raging fire, and Edom a field of dry stubble. The descendants of Joseph will be a flame roaring across the field, devouring everything. There will be no survivors in Edom. I, the Lord, have spoken. All right, so this is a very important prophecy. And this is why there are no modern day depictions of Edomites. You know, nobody wants to be an Edomite. But again, according to prophecy, Edom would occupy heavily in prophecy. They would be the nation that was in rulership when the Messiah returned. All right. And when I say the Messiah returned, I'm talking about for the second time. All right. The last time, if you will. All right. We're going to get this to show that. This is 2nd Esdras chapter 6 and verse 9 in the G&T. All right. And it reads, Esau represents the end of this age, and Jacob represents the beginning of the new age. So when you understand that Amalek is a part of the Edomite nation, really the head of the Edomite nation, all right, the chief house, if you will, everything starts to fall into place. You know, scriptures say that the red horse was let loose to take peace from the earth. And the so-called white man has done that as a nation of people. All right, with the two major factors right now being the Americans and the state of Israel. All right, so what he's trying to do is disassociate the Orthodox small hats from the modern Zionist small hats, and say that the modern Zionist small hats are acting like Amalek, because now Amalek is a concept that's not biblical. And what we're seeing, just like Christianity, just like Islam, is a twist of the narrative. Whereas Islam is more of an Ishmaelite supremacy, all right, Zionism and Judaism is really an Amalekite supremacist doctrine. All right, because they're not the people of the Lord. All right, there was nowhere in prophecy that the people of the Lord would have F-35 jets and a intelligence agency and the ability to have nukes, and it's not biblical. The Lord said that our nation would be as worms, meaning we have no defenses. And as a nation of people, you Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans have no defenses. You know, fuck a jet. You don't even have a runway. And that's prophecy. And this is why you have to follow prophecy, not just the words that people are saying, because again, people's words can deceive, but the prophecies say what they say, and they're unapologetic. All right, so let's get a little bit more of this.
A concept of the people who uproot people away from God. Now, you don't have to come now to my answer. You have the answer yourself. Who uprooting people away from God in today's day? Not the Palestinians, not Iran. Iran is a God-fearing people. They're serving God. Who uprooting God? The right people who are uprooting God is Netanyahu and the whole Zionist. They uproot. Today are 18 million Jews. 16 of them, they're secular. They don't believe in God. Whose job is that? This is the job of the Zionists.
And the statement, who uprooted people from God, is the so-called white man as a whole. All right. It ain't just the so-called Zionists. It's the so-called white man as a whole have uprooted the world from God. All right. And what he's again trying to do is use the scriptures, and it shows you that they are familiar with the scriptures and prophecy, most importantly. You could tell this is a very crafty way of disassociating the small hats from being Edom by saying who uprooted people from God, the Zionists. And it's just like the regular so-called white people saying who's ruling the world, the small hats. You know, it's one family, and we're just watching them beef in public. All right, but when you really go into the scriptures, it's obvious that this is one nation of people going into Edom, and this is the chief house of Edom. All right, no other nation on earth would have been able to get away with the stuff that they've been able to get away with and not be condemned without, not be condemned. And the reason people don't really speak out is because of the repercussions. They have that statement, you want to know who's in power, just find out who you're not allowed to speak about. Going into that chief house, man. All right. Now let's continue a little bit more. As a matter of fact, let's go here. I want to get this first. So Revelation chapter 6 and verse 4 says, and there went out another horse that was red, and power was given to him that sat thereon to take peace from the earth, and that they should kill one another. And there was given unto him a great sword. And it's not just the Americans that have a great sword, that have the ability to kill with damn near impunity. All right, it's also these small hats. Because again, when you deal with the nation of Edom, it's the so-called white man as a whole, not just the Americans, but the Russians, the small hats, the Germans, the Australians, the New Zealanders, the Canadians. All right, it's their nation as a whole, because the Lord deals with families that are upon the earth. Not being born in a land makes this is your nationality. No, your nationality is determined by the house of your father. All right. Matter of fact, we're going to bring that out real quick. This is Numbers chapter 1 and verse 18. And they assembled all the congregation together on the first day of the second month. And they declared their pedigrees after their families by the house of their fathers, according to the number of the names from 20 years old and upward by their polls. All right. So your father's lineage determines your nationality, the seed of your father. All right. And if you look at nature, all right, in this, for those who are already in the know, you've heard this before. When you look at nature, if you take an apple seed and you plant it in China, it's still an apple seed. It's still an apple. All right. If you take that same apple seed and plant it in South America, it is still an apple. It's an apple in South America. That's how the Lord deals with nations of people. All right. This is why we can't determine who is and who isn't an Israelite according to the appearance. We can identify who the Israelites are as a nation of people by what would happen to them in the end days, just like we can identify who Esau Edom is by their actions in the end days. All right, you can't necessarily point anyone out individually until you try the spirit by the spirit, which is to give them this understanding, this word, and look at it and understand how they react to it, because it'll tell you. All right. And the reason I say that through the spirit is because of this is Hebrews chapter 4 and verse 12. For the word of the Most High is quick and powerful and sharper than any two-edged sword, piercing even to the dividing asunder of soul and spirit and of the joints and marrow, and is a discerner of the thoughts and intents of the heart. All right. And this is why Paul famously said this in Romans 8 and 16. Says the spirit itself beareth witness with our spirit that we are the children of Yahweh Shai, and if children, then heirs, heirs of the Most High, and joint heirs with Hamashiach, if so be that we suffer with him, that we may be also glorified together. All right, because this truth will be able to discern the thoughts and intent of the heart, that heart going into the mind. All right, this is John chapter 14. And I'm going to jump down to verse 26. And it reads, but the Comforter, which is the Holy Spirit, whom the Father will send in my name, he shall teach you all things and bring all things to your remembrance, whatsoever I have said unto you. Peace I leave with you, my peace I give unto you, not as the world giveth I unto you. Let not your heart be troubled, neither let it be afraid. All right. And one thing that truth and the spirit is revealing is prophecy. All right. One of the most important things in this day and age is prophecy, because again, you're able to see through the delusion when you have the spirit of Yahweh Shema Shai and a grip on prophecy, which can only come from the Heavenly Father, as the scriptures say, that gift of faith. All right. Matter of fact, it's Ephesians chapter 2 and verse 8. For by grace are you saved through faith, and that not of yourselves. It is the gift of Yahweh Shema Shai. All right. And that gift of faith gives you eyesolve to see and understand. And this is why we're able to go precept upon precept and bring out the words of the Lord. And what we're finding out is, whether it's Islam, whether it's Christianity, whether it's Judaism, it's all a twist on what was actually written. Meaning they take some truth and then they add their own narrative to it. All right. And what we're seeing is a God try to say a nationality has now become a concept. But when we actually look at prophecy, that's not the case. All right. So let's continue a little bit more.
The last 140 years since they started the movement of Zionism, they uproot people from God constantly.
So you're saying Netanyahu is Amalek?
Netanyahu, I didn't have to say it. This is the fact. Amalek means people who uproot people from God, especially the Jewish people uproot from God. This is the job of Netanyahu do. And exactly, he is the Amalek. But I didn't have to say it. This is just the fact. I bring out the fact on the table. But I say that with the full mouth. I have no problem to say that. He is the right Amalek. Who gives him the right to say who is Amalek, who's not? Of course, everybody who is his enemy, he will say he is Amalek. I can say for you, I can say for everybody. I mean, you have to understand what it means, Amalek. Now, I will come to another point.
All right. So we just heard it again. And again, as we brought out precept upon precept, Amalek is an actual nation of people. And the reason that these guys are trying to turn it into a concept is because, again, we just read the prophecy of what happens to Amalek at the end of this thing. All right. He made a statement. What gives you the right to take people's land? What gives you guys the right as a whole? You know, what gives them the right to say that they're Israelites without having to prove it at all? You know, just put on a costume and just call yourself something that doesn't fit you according to prophecy. The scripture said we will forget our heritage. All right, let's get there. This is Jeremiah chapter 17 and 4. It says, and thou even thyself shalt discontinue from thine heritage that I gave thee, and I will cause thee to serve thine enemies in the land which thou knowest not, for ye have kindled a fire in mine anger, which shall burn forever. All right. And that is us to this day. We are serving our enemies, which is why we need salvation. Who do they need salvation from? You know, there's many questions you can ask them. Where are the other tribes? You know, why does Kadar mean dark skinned and nobody fits the description? You know, there's many questions we can ask. But again, Occam's razor says the simplest answer tends to be the real answer, the right answer. And when you look at everything that the Israelites will be going through in the end days and the end times, it's obvious who the Israelites are and who they are not. All right, because we're in that time where the Lord is removing the covering cast and it's being seen and understood, man. All right, because again, Amalek, let's get it. This is Deuteronomy 25 and 19. You know, I'm going to start up at 17. It says, remember what Amalek did unto thee by the way, when ye were come forth out of Egypt, how he met thee by the way and smote the hindmost of thee even all that were feeble behind thee, when thou wast faint and weary, and he feared not the Most High. Therefore it shall be, when the Lord thy God giveth thee rest from all thine enemies round about, in the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee for an inheritance to possess it, that thou shalt blot out the remembrance of Amalek from under heaven. Thou shalt not forget it. All right. And if the Lord is telling his children not to forget it, he hasn't forgotten it. You know, that they smote the hindermost parts. You know, people forget that 1,000 years is as a day to the Lord. So this event, even though it's considered ancient history to us, this is very recent and fresh for the Heavenly Father. You know, you can imagine the Lord being able to really see the faces of the feeble that were smitten by Amalek when the Lord wrought us a great victory in Egypt. So this is fresh, and that's why the Lord told us to remember it, because he would never forget it. And this is why nobody wants to be Amalek. This is why even now with Benjamin Netanyahu, he said it in a speech months ago, if not years, about the Palestinians being the tribe of Amalek, and they don't fit the description. All right, we just read it in Numbers. All right, Amalek. Matter of fact, let's go back to it. All right, it's Numbers 24 and 20. And when he looked on Amalek, he took up his parable and said, Amalek was the first of the nations, but his latter end shall be that he perish forever. The Palestinians aren't first of the nations. All right, they're not chief of the nations, and they never were. You know, they've never been the chief of the nations. The Palestinians go back to Ishmael. All right, so you got Uncle Ishmael, and Uncle Esau. All right, beginning with the tribe of Amalek, fighting over a land that don't belong to them, because thousands of years ago they both got passed over for the blessing, and it was given to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, not Isaac and Esau. And this war is still going on to this day, and it's going to take the Lord to come in to intervene and to end it. And this is why truth is now springing forth in the earth, man, and nobody can do anything about it because the deeds have been done. See, the Lord kept the scriptures around in a dark saying and in parables, so that the guilty parties could not destroy the evidence. But the Lord set up the apostles last, as it were, appointed unto death, to now uncover the truth of the matter. And now the people who fit the description according to their actions are now being identified. You know, we just read where they smote the feeble amongst our nation. And what are they doing in Gaza? You know, if you know, you know. All right, 2 Ezra 6 and 27 says, for evil shall be put out, and deceit shall be quenched. As for faith, it shall flourish. Corruption shall be overcome, and the truth which had been so long without fruit shall be declared. All right, and now it's being declared. And now the proper understanding is being declared for the world to see. And we're finding out who Amalek is, who Edom is. All right, Edom is the physical counterpart of the spiritual demon Satan. All right, you know what's cold? I just found this in a recent overview, you know, just looking over Amalek after seeing this video, and I found this. I'll just bring it out. It says Midrash Amalek Satan. All right, so I put that in the Google search. It says in the Midrashic and Kabbalistic tradition, Amalek is considered the spiritual embodiment of evil, functioning as an agent of Satan. And that's who Edom is as a whole. All right, they are the spiritual embodiment of evil, functioning as an agent of Satan. Amalek is just one of the tribes. The chief tribe, all right? The first of the tribe of Edom. All right, so I thought that was spiritual. Again, we don't need any other book to verify, you know, what the Lord has already told us according to the scriptures. All right, but it's now being brought to life, and the world is now, for those who know, or for those who've been given the eye salve, this is pure. This is clear. It's very clear who's who. All right, according to the Bible. All right, this is Revelation chapter 3, and I'll end it with this, verse 18. I counsel thee to buy of me gold tried in the fire, that thou mayest be rich, and white raiment, that thou mayest be clothed, and that the shame of thy nakedness do not appear, and anoint thine eyes with eyesal, that thou mayest see. All right. And that's a gift that the Lord has to give, and the Lord has given, all right, the elect of his nation, the elect of the nation of Israel, which consists of Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans, West Indians, and Haitians, and their descendants that are scattered amongst all nations, that may look like other nations, but their lineage goes back to Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans, West Indians, and Haitians on their father's side. All right, those are the Israelites. All right, the curses would identify who the Israelites are in the end times. And really, if you look at the violence would identify Esau, amongst other things, of course. All right. But the violence in the position, the power, all right, would identify Esau, all right, which is the wicked. All right, Job 9:24. The earth is given into the hand of the wicked. He covered the faces of the judges thereof. If not, where and who is he? And the beautiful thing about this truth is in the end, it shall speak and not lie, as the scriptures say. You can't argue that the Arabs are Esau anymore. You really can't make that argument no more. You can't make the argument that Esau, that the so-called white man is from the tribe of the family of Japheth. That the so-called white man is a Japhite. You can't prove that with scriptures and the world we live in today. No, they are the wicked, and their actions speak louder than our words. All right. Whether they wear a small hat or not, they all are from the tribe of Edom, and these guys are from the tribe of Amalek. All right. So, Lord willing, this was edifying. With that, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakah, Kodash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, or the elders of Yasha Allah, and a sincere salutation to all Yuakim, who are preaching this word and believing this word, and to the Akwad, who are believing this word in all truth and in sincerity. Shalom.